On this episode of I'm Not a Lawyer, but the Debrief.
The fact that that kind of stuff happens in front of the jury, the reason that it shouldn't is because you can bias them.
Yeah.
They can start to say, I don't like her. I don't like him. The judge seems to not like her. The judge seems to not like him. It can start to impact their verdict. Problematic. Very problematic.
Now, if you're not ready, then go ahead and tell me you're not ready.
I object to you getting records. You've been intrusive into people's personal lives.
In other words, the car didn't hit him, and he wasn't hit by the car.
I'm not a lawyer, but... Are y'all keeping up? I'm not a lawyer, but...
The Debrief.
Welcome to I'm Not a Lawyer, but...
The Debrief.
Good job. I'm Not a Lawyer, but, a.k.a. Melanie, and I'm joined by my co-host...
Gooseby. How y'all doing?
And we are excited to have another episode with y'all. Today we are going to be talking about...
YSL.
And...
Can read.
All right. And we have a lot to get through today. I hope y'all are ready because Karen Reed finally started. And child, they are in already.
It's on and popping.
Yes. And Greg has been watching, so...
On and popping.
You're going to have opinions today. Before we get into that, I should say on this podcast, we are not lawyers by any means, but we being me, but also Greg, obviously now with Karen Reed, we consume a lot of stuff or legal stuff and then come and give you that information, hopefully in a way that is engaging and interesting, and then insert a few opinions in there along the way. That said, I'm going to start with, we need to name this segment. Mel's not taking the bar, but she's studying the bar questions. Mel's not taking the baby bar, but she's studying the baby bar questions. I don't know what to call it. We have to come up with a name.
Call it baby bar.
Mel takes the baby bar. Not really.
Mel's baby.
Bar.
Hey.
You have to put
baby.
Bar.
Why?
Because the whole point is it's the bar legal.
Mel has bars.
Mel has bars. Baby bars. Because the bar is like... Anyway, let's talk about this another time.
Okay.
All right. We are going to start... Oh, I want to talk about the difference between larceny, robbery, and burglary. Do you know the difference?
Larceny.
Do you know what larceny is?
Burglary.
And robbery.
And robbery.
Do you know what any of those are?
No, I'm assuming burglary and robbery. Larceny is under that umbrella, but I really thought larceny was like fire. What's that when you set something on fire?
That is called arson.
Arson. Got it mixed up. No, I don't know the difference I don't even know what larceny is.
Okay.
Burglary and
they
robbery.
All have to do with stealing.
Okay.
Well, kind of. This is also, let me be clear, this is specific to California statute, California laws, okay? Actually, if you are in another state and your law is different when it comes to these, put it in the comments. I actually want to know now, okay? Tell me what your difference is. This is specific to California.
Okay, so burglary, I broke into your house.
Burglary,
it was locked and I broke in, so that's burglary.
Okay.
Stealing, I walked into the grocery store, I grabbed some candy.
Stealing being robbery or larceny?
Dang, you didn't even say stealing. Robbery is me going into a grocery store and grabbing things off the shelf, taking it out.
What is that one?
That's robbery.
Robbery, okay.
Nah, that ain't robbery.
It's okay, it's not a test. I'm just genuinely...
Robbery is me taking something off of your person.
Robbery is taking something off of my person.
Yes.
Okay.
Burglary
is a house,
me doing
you said?
it and you don't even know it happened.
Okay. Larceny.
And larceny is planning it. When you plan to rob the bank and you have a whole
That would be
plan.
Like premeditated.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
and that's what you think larceny is?
Yes.
Got it. No. Nope. I see somebody. I think in the Patreon has it accurately. So let's start with larceny. Larceny is stealing. Okay, it is the trespassery taking and carrying away of the personal property of another with the intent to permanently deprive the owner. Okay, so it is stealing essentially, right? Taking and carrying away the personal property. So if you had a pen here and maybe you were looking that way and I stole it. And never intend to give it back to you, that would be larceny, which is stealing. Robbery is larceny, okay, so it's stealing, but it is done with force or fear from the immediate presence of the person. So if I had a gun and said, give me that pen, now we've graduated to robbery. And then burglary. Okay. So burglary used to be defined as the breaking and entering into the dwelling at night of another with the intent to commit a felony therein. So it used to be defined. This is common law, which is like, think about common law marriage. Okay, so common law used to define burglary as breaking and entering into the dwelling home of another at night. It used to be specific. And then modern law, 1962, modern law came into play where like 35 states picked it up. And so it became defined as the unlawful entry into the protected structure of another with the intent to commit a crime therein. So it doesn't have to be at night, essentially. I was
about to say. Like,
and it doesn't have to just be a home. At this point, it is now a structure. So if I break in to a structure with the intent to commit a crime, now we've graduated to burglary. Anyway, there's our to be determined segment. But like I said, if your state defines
Mel has bars.
Mel has bars. I like that. If your state defines it differently, actually, I'm curious what the differences are. That would be specific to California. Let's move on because we gotta get to it. Let's start with YSL. And I won't take a ton of time, but there, like I said, is some comparisons that I want to make with Karen Reed, which is why I want to highlight it. But for the last week, a retired sergeant, detective investigator, whose name is, let's say, Investigator Gaither, has been on the stand. And she worked at Atlanta Police Department. She worked in the gang unit specifically, so she investigated YSL for a long time. And she has been testifying about a ton of things, including who has snitched, amen. She has talked about the Citgo incident that happened where D'Angelo White was shot and then half of his head was shot off. Not to be like graphic or dismissive, that's obviously what happened. And then she also testified about what she says she learned about the killing of Donovan Thomas, a.k.a. Nut, who she obviously says was ordered by Jeffrey Williams, a.k.a. Young Thug. Now, she was very cooperative with the state, with the prosecutors. Adrienne Love, she was answering all the questions. She was, hey, Adrienne, which is also, okay, hold on, let me say this too. Because
how you are when you retired?
Well, a lot of people were like, why is she so friendly with Adrienne? And the thing to know, okay, is that police and prosecutors work a lot together. They work on many cases. The defense attorneys are actually, they don't work with them all the time, right? Think about Brian Steele, who's a high-profile lawyer, who probably travels, if he got high-profile clients with a lot of money, they will probably fly him in to Florida, to California, to Georgia, everywhere. So he is encountering these judges, these district attorneys, and these officers for the first time, potentially. But the people who are consistent, the judges, the DA, and the officers. So that it's not questionable or shady that they actually know each other.
Yeah, going to work.
Absolutely. And you, as an officer, are probably getting called into court to testify about a lot of things all the time, especially if you're in the gang unit. That's probably a smaller unit. Yeah. You are being called. So that's not questionable. What the problem is, though, is that Detective Gaither was rude and uncooperative with the defense. And she was just not, it was just awkward. So anyway, there's a setup. She's on the stand. She finally finishes with the state. It takes multiple days, 3-4 days. And then there's finally cross-examination. And Shannon Stillwell's attorney, whose name is Max Shart, does cross-examination on Detective Gaither. And before he even does a cross-examination, he makes a point in front of the judge. The jurors are removed. He makes a point to the judge that he wants to ask Detective Gaither for all of the reports that she has related to this case. He says, can I go outside and ask her for reports? And the judge is like, sure, I don't care, essentially. Anyway, he goes outside and he comes back in the courtroom and he says, I asked her and she says she doesn't work at APD anymore. She's retired and she can't have access to any other reports. And the judge is like, okay, you asked, are you happy with that? And he's like, I'm not happy, but okay.
Exactly.
So she gets on the stand, and there are some reports that she's been provided to the state and that are available at trial. But there are some reports that are missing. And Max Shart keys in on the fact that all of the reports are not available. And so he he is very insistent on, where are your reports? Where are the reports? You talked to D'Angelo White, one of the victims, but the other people who were in the car when D'Angelo White's head was shot, you talked to them, but you don't have reports of your conversations with them. How come you only have one of 3 or 4 people in a car? But you're telling me you talked to them. She also says she went to a McDonald's and all these establishments to try to get footage and have these interviews. And he's like, where are those reports? And she's like, I don't have those. I don't have those. So he is very basically showing the jury that where are the reports? So anyway, here's the clip. You guys can watch how ridiculous it has been.
We have audio of that. Where is the audio of the Terrion Moody interview?
I've already answered that, sir.
Where is the audio of the Christian James interview?
This is my same answer as previous.
Where is the audio of the Cornelius Davis interview?
I think you've already asked me that. For all of these audio interviews that you're requesting outside of D'Angelo White and the ones that have been provided to the court, I do not have access to them at this time.
When you left the police department, what did you do with this?
What did I do with what? You have it in your hand?
Yeah, what did you do with it? The photo lineup that you wrote on, did that go in the case file when you left the Atlanta Police Department?
I believe you just asked me the exact same question that you did before.
I didn't. Could you please answer my question?
What's your question again, sir?
Did you do anything different with these police reports than you did with the other police reports that we can't find? We have this one, though, but you don't have the other police reports. Okay, and do you have any police reports summarizing how many phone conversations you had between Kenneth Copeland and your work cell number from January to June of 2015?
Here with me today, no.
Where would those reports be?
I haven't.
If you know, Mr. Gaither, where are your police reports?
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered.
Outstanding objection.
I have no further questions.
She don't sound too happy.
She was like that the whole time with them, with the defense. Of course, on the other side, she was very cooperative, very, whatever question they had, she's answering. Yeah, but on that side, she was just uncooperative, and it was really hard to watch. It was really difficult to watch her do that, and for the judge to just sit there.
But what do they expect from a person that's retired and no longer working there? She probably spent 10, 15, 20 plus years working.
It wasn't very long. She shouldn't have been qualified as an expert, but okay, go ahead.
Oh, okay. It wasn't.
That's my opinion,
wasn't long.
and I'm not a lawyer, but listen.
But y'all know how it is. You leave a job, you actually leave a job wishing, man, I hope somebody from that job called me and asked me for anything.
Sure, but
I'm going to be like, don't work that long. You just want to put that energy off on them.
Sure, but why was she so cooperative with the state then? If you don't want to be there, you don't want to be there. But for you to, any question that was asked of her, she gave answers and gave over answers and more context and was very willing to give whatever. And then from the outset with Steele, with Shart, she was just like, at one point he said, because Max Shart said he was reading a statement or something, and he said, we being plural. And she said, don't insult my intelligence like that. And then the judge, so the state objected. The judge was like, Mr. Shart, please be respectful. Max Shart said, I'm always respectful. And then she said, I doubt it. Literally. And I'm like, I can't believe that is, and he doesn't like admonish her, or the judge doesn't correct her or say anything to her. They have to be like, Judge, she can't, she was on the stand objecting and I'm like, bruh, you can't you're the witness. The state, the lawyers object, not you, the witness. But she was just so uncooperative. It was just really, really cringe worthy to watch. In addition to that, though, and the specific thing we're going to talk about with Karen Reed are the reports, right? The fact that there are some reports provided and some reports missing this is not the first time that has come up in this trial, which is just interesting. And then the other thing I'll say before we move on to Karen Reed is this last thing. I had started it with the Patreon before we started recording, which was about the way this case is going. And I like to do my little, videos and talk about the cases and typically reserve my opinions. And what I want to say, though, is that the judge is not doing a good job, in my opinion. He is just not. You watch any other trial and you will see that he is not doing a good job.
That is the first thing I recognized, or I noticed.
When you started watching Karen Reed?
Yes. I was like, wow.
Even back
this
to...
is crazy.
The difference is massive.
She has her court in order.
Is anybody going back and forth with her?
Nope, not at all.
When she makes a ruling, that's it.
That's it.
And why are you still talking to me?
Yep.
That's it.
And she doesn't even have to say that.
When I think about even Y&W Melly's trial, which was a long time, double murder trial. He supposedly, allegedly killed two of his friends. And that DA actually ended up getting recused and put off the case because she was doing some shady stuff. So, okay. I tell you what, nobody was arguing back and forth with that judge.
Yeah.
Nope, they were not. It got a little testy in there. But no, he was, in this trial, Judge Glanville raises his voice 3 times a day. He is yelling at somebody 3 times a day.
It's hilarious.
And these other judges, they don't raise their... Are you kidding me? I'll run this. This is my courtroom. You gonna respect me?
This Karen Reed judge sounds so bored.
And he has no order. He goes back on his own rulings within 2 minutes. He says, this is the order. The state argues, and then he'd be like, just kidding. I changed my mind. I'd be like, wait, what? What is happening? What is happening? He starts late every day. In other trials, you object. Sometimes you say what the objection is for. Sometimes you just object. And then the judge makes a ruling. In this trial, both sides, them attorneys be like, objection, she can't say that. And he'd be like, what's your grounds? What's your grounds? And they'll be like, hearsay. And then he's overruled. And I'm like, I can't believe all of this just happened. In the other trials, objection, overruled, objection, sustained, objection. What are the grounds? Hearsay, overruled, or sustained. That's it. There is no talking. There is no arguing. If it becomes that, the judge is like, sidebar, immediately. The fact that that kind of stuff happens in front of the jury, the reason that it shouldn't is because you can bias them.
Yeah.
They can start to say, I don't like her. I don't like him. The judge seems to not like her. The judge seems to not like him. It can start to impact their verdict. Problematic. Very problematic.
And then it's hard for you to start taking things serious. When you hear these grown people arguing the way they be arguing, is wild.
Somebody in the Patreon, he takes so many comfort breaks. That man will be like, we're going to start at 8:45. They start at 10:30. They'll be in court for 45 minutes, and he'll be like, I have it on good authority that we need to take a comfort break. I'll be like, bruh, what is happening? You got a break already? The jurors be in there for 10 minutes, and then the rest of the 7 hours be the jurors outside and them in the court doing whatever. I'd be like, y'all are wasting these jurors' time. Okay? And that's only going to prolong this case, which is already supposed to be over a year. You get it together. pull these people in. This is ridiculous. Anyway, I'm not even going to go off on Attorney Love because that's a whole different, the issues with her, that's completely separate. I put a lot of this, the responsibility of the chaos of this trial, in my non-lawyer opinion, falls squarely on the judge. Yeah. Because a judge who has their courtroom in order, even if Attorney Love was being crazy, even if the defense was being crazy, the judge shouldn't tolerate it. The judge should make order in the court. That's what they say. Get order. Anyway.
It should.
All right. Let's talk about Karen Reed.
Karen Reed.
I've been looking forward to this trial and the unfolding of all of it. And so it's going to be very interesting. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's going to be very interesting because they're poking holes in people's stories. Mm-hmm. And people have lied and their stories are changing constantly. So how do you want to start this?
Let's start with opening statements because I have a couple clips. Even though in the actual proceeding, it's the Commonwealth because Boston or Massachusetts is apparently a Commonwealth and not a state. So the Commonwealth went first with their opening. But I'm going to start with the defense instead. Karen's defense attorney came out swinging.
Oh, yeah.
Came out swinging. Let's go to him first, and then we'll transition to how the Commonwealth did. Here's the clip of this man came up. So he came up to the podium and wasn't playing. Here we go.
Karen Reed was framed. Her car never struck John O'Keefe. She did not cause his death. And that means that somebody else did. You will learn that it was no accident that John O'Keefe was found dead on the front lawn of 34 Fairview Road in Canton on January 29th of 2022. You will learn that at that address lived a well-known and well-connected law enforcement family in Canton, the Alberts. Because the Alberts were involved, and because they had close connections to the investigators in this case, Karen Reed was framed for a murder she did not commit. Good morning again.
Mic drop.
Yeah, you were right.
I would feel like, oh,
listen,
y'all hear me?
If you were a juror and you heard that, if you come up and say she was framed, I would be like, she was? What's tea?
And somebody else did it.
What happened? Tell me the tea.
Police.
And then tell me the tea. I think that was an amazing way to start an opening statement.
Yes. No beating around the bush. Incredible. No beating around the bush. Straight to the fact.
Got to it.
They framing this lady. She's innocent. And if she's innocent, that means somebody else did it.
And they did say that.
And,
yes.
And the only reason why is because what was it? It's against a police family.
Yeah. He did an incredible job. Now, on the other side, the Commonwealth, that man, they should have either get somebody else to do it or they should have helped write his opening because openings are so important. They set up your case. They get your jurors invested in understanding what's happening, what's to come, and he was boring and confusing, and he literally went like line by line, named people, like tried to lay out what happened, and it was all over the place. So much so that the two most important things that he said, in my opinion, got lost in his statement. Number one, you don't have to have a motive when there's a crime. You don't have to. As the prosecutors, you don't have to say, this is why. Yep. It's just helpful. If I'm a juror, help me understand paint the picture and tell me why they did it. So motive in this case, for me, is like, okay, even if she did it, like, if y'all are saying she did it intentionally, why would she do it? If she did it on accident, that's different. But if you're saying she intentionally did it, tell me why. And at some point during this very lengthy, boring, monotone opening, the Commonwealth, the prosecutor, says it kind of. So I'm going to play the first clip, and then I'll come back.
They had started dating around that time period, or reconnected during that time period, and the defendant had stayed at the house in Canton several nights a week. She had helped out with the children. In the month or so leading up to Mr. O'Keefe's death, the relationship soured. You will see text messages between Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed to that effect. You will hear testimony from the children, from John's niece and nephew in regard to things they observed within that relationship. And you'll hear testimony from other individuals as far as their observations or things that they heard.
So I don't even know if you saw him. His voice is so boring. But what he said is in the months leading up to John O'Keefe's death, the relationship soured.
Yep.
And he said you're going to hear testimony from the niece or nephew and other people who are going to be able to talk about the relationship souring. Now, this other thing that he said, which was, again, very easy to miss, is I'm going to play it and then I'll come back. Hold on.
You'll also hear testimony from the defendant's phone in regard to, and from another individual's phone in regard to that Aruba trip. In regard to text messages of an amorous nature that she had with Mr. Brian Higgins, who was at the waterfall and also at the residence on 34 Fairview, because he was friends with the homeowner, Brian Albert, but he was also friends with Mr. O'Keefe and had also met the defendant. And throughout the course of those amorous text messages, there is references that the defendant makes to that incident in Aruba, as she purports it to be Mr. O'Keefe cheating on her. She insists that he was making out with Marietta Sullivan in that lobby as opposed to her giving him a hug. And makes repeated reference to that within the content of those text messages as well. Now, you'll hear testimony from a number of different other individuals, Mr. Michael Trotter, who has a supervisory role.
All right, because you probably missed it again. Even though I didn't isolate the clip, it's probably still, you missed it.
Yeah.
So what he is talking about is that there is, in the opening, he talks about, and actually the sister and brother, talk about a time that John O'Keefe and Karen Reed went to Aruba for New Year's. It was a big group, big party. They're there, and one of the women who organized the trips, I think her name is like Lauren Sullivan, she has a sister who is also there. John and this sister are in the lobby passing each other and apparently stop to hug. Karen Reed sees them and she says that they were kissing. And so she accuses John O'Keefe of cheating on her. So she goes crazy and there's an argument that happens 20 minutes after. They argue for 20 minutes. That's kind of what he said. What he then says is that following that Aruba trip, there are some text messages between Karen Reed and Brian Higgins. Brian Higgins, he says, was at the Waterfall, which is the bar that John and Karen were at before they went to the party where he died. They went to this Waterfall bar. Brian Higgins was there, and Brian Higgins left that bar and also went to the house that they went to.
The Alberts.
The Alberts house. So John goes there, and Karen leaves. And what he says is there were some text messages between Karen Reed and Brian Higgins that were of amorous nature. So I don't use that word typically. Amorous nature means showing, feeling, or relating to sexual desire. So what he was actually implying that was dismissed. We missed it, I'm sure everybody else missed it. But basically he's saying Karen and Brian were having some inappropriate text messages with each other. Brian was at the bar and then goes to the house. John goes to the house. And all of a sudden, he winds up dead. I don't know why he would bring that up because
that hurts him.
Yeah, but 100%. But it also could be the motive for Karen. I'm assuming maybe that's what he was trying. I don't know.
It could also be the motive for Higgins.
It could be, but could it be the motive for Karen?
No.
You don't think so?
Nah.
Oh, well.
That's her boyfriend for one. So
amorous. I said it wrong. It's amorous, not armor. Oh, there is no R between the A-R-M. I said amorous. It's amorous. Sorry, you're right, Savannah. Go ahead. I told you I don't use that word. Go ahead.
Not Paul, but John and Karen aren't married.
Correct. You can still cheat.
I mean, you can still cheat. So like, usually,
maybe he's implying she wanted to be with the other man, Brian Higgins. I don't know, child.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
He was so bad.
Usually, you unalive your husband so you can get some money, and then you go to the next man. But
why would
it's your boyfriend?
Yeah.
You ain't on. No, you're not a beneficiary of nothing.
That's true.
So why not just say I'm breaking up with you and I'm gonna be with Higgins?
Yeah.
I
don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and listening, I was like, I had seen people saying that Karen was cheating on John with Brian, and I didn't understand where that came from. And then when I was watching the trial, I said, "Oh, is that the connection here?" But regardless, it was still buried in his entire opening statement. It didn't stand out. It took me a couple times. I was like trying to his opening was so bad. And as a juror, I would have been like, "Boy, go away." Anyway, somebody said amor means love. You're right. So amor, amorous. Anyway, I'm moving on from that. That said, the first witness is John's brother, Paul.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Paul.
Yep. And Paul comes on the stand, and it was heartbreaking, in my opinion, to hear his testimony.
Their family has
gone through a lot.
So much.
Oh my gosh.
And it was one thing after another.
Yeah.
Paul almost started, well, I guess crying or whatever, talking about his brother. But Paul has lost both of his siblings.
Yeah, so it's the sister was Kristen is the oldest, and then it was John, and then it's Paul.
Yep.
And so on the stand, Paul talks about how his sister Kristen died. She had a tumor. And so she had two children, and the niece and nephew. And so she died. And 2 months after she died, her husband died. But after both of them died, the children are, of course, orphaned at that point. And so John, the middle brother, or the one we're talking about, John O'Keefe, takes them on. And so he becomes their legal guardian.
Yeah, he moves into the house.
And so he moves into the house that his sister and brother-in-law had until they passed. So he moves into that house. He raises these children, and then he buys another house in Canton, etc. He has them, and now he has died. And so it was heartbreaking to hear his brother go through the story of what happened. And so anyway, so the brothers first. After Paul testifies, Paul's wife, Erin O'Keefe, she comes to the stand and she testifies. And what was interesting about both of their testimonies for me is the main question is whose side are they on, right? Like one of the questions you ask is who do they believe she's framed, or do they believe she did it? And they both talked about how they had a great relationship with Karen prior to this, and then the wife specifically was like, I ain't talked to that woman since that man died, basically. Yeah. And I was like, oh, so that tells me that you believe she's guilty. So that was very interesting. Did you get that they believe that she was guilty? Is that your interpretation?
I didn't get that.
Okay.
From what I remember, she was just like, we haven't spoke, you know. I didn't get that. I didn't sense that. Now the brother,
you got to rewatch it, because she said I liked Karen.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
And the attorney kept saying at that point before January 29th, and she was like, yeah, sure. We used to talk all the time. We used to hang out. I was like, oh, it's given you don't like her no more.
I might have been changing diapers or something at that time. But the brother seemed cool. He was like, I got a great relationship with her.
Had. You missed the hads.
Hads?
Yes. They were not talking about currently.
No.
You missed the had.
Had. When you say had.
Before John O'Keefe died.
And then after the had.
Did
he say now there's nothing?
I don't know.
I'm taking it as, yeah, we had a good relationship with her. If, knock on wood, if I would pass, Kev then would say, or my brothers would be like, yeah, I had a good relationship with Mel. Because they probably wouldn't be in contact with you that much since I'm not around anymore.
Well, sure. The only thing I would call out, again, this goes to the wife specifically, is that she was like, I haven't spoken to her since.
And she said it in that tone. You saying you putting a little oomph on there, like.
Even if she didn't, do you? It doesn't say anything if she hasn't spoken to the person that's accused of killing her brother-in-law.
There's a difference from. I ain't talked to her since, and no, I haven't talked to her since.
Sure.
Yeah.
We can disagree. We can disagree. I think that somebody in the Patreon is saying they stressed the had.
They stressed the had.
And
okay.
I would agree that it's giving they don't speak to her anymore.
I'm gonna run it back.
Yes, and I'm curious what you'll have to say. Okay, so anyway, we need to move on because we've been here a long time, which is that after those two did their testifying, and which the other thing that I appreciated is that the defense, Karen's attorneys, were like, no questions to both of them. They didn't do no cross-examination. Number one, which I thought was respectful, but it's also efficient. Like, their case is not about the relationship. They are focused on what happened to John and their client being accused of it, and instead of everything else. And again, which is just a big difference in YSL, because everybody is focused on the wrong stuff. Stay focused. And in this trial, they were like, you can go. Thank you for your time. You can go. All right, we got law enforcement now. We got questions for them and nobody else. So anyway, after the first two testified, Paul and his wife, the very first law enforcement officer comes to the stand. Mm-hmm. And that is when things got interesting.
Yeah, playboy.
So his name is Steve Saraf or Saraf.
Big
Steve. I have a lot of clips. Let me say this quickly. I have a lot of clips that I'm going to play. Many of them are from the cross-examination of the witnesses and not the direct, mainly because on direct examination, the story that is being told is the story, right? It's the defense's job to poke holes in that story. And so that's the way that these clips are going to be. I'll set it up, or we'll set it up, and then we'll play the clip. So the first clip, let's talk about the dispatch.
Yep.
The dispatch log.
Yeah, so the dispatch log, the address was wrong. Just wrong.
Essentially.
Everybody had supposedly logged in the wrong address, but showed up to the right address.
Yes.
Everybody. So the defense was basically saying, how important are these logs? Like, and everybody's like, man, they're detailed.
Yeah.
You have to be detailed when you're doing these logs.
Yeah.
They're showing up to the house is what, 32, 44?
It's 34.
34, everybody wrote in 32.
Mm-hmm.
40 something. This house, this street. And you're like, hold on. Are you trying to cover up something or deceive us in some type of way? And when you think about it, how are you all getting this address wrong?
Okay.
Where a police officer is passed. This is like serious
Okay,
stuff.
I'm going to play the clip so you guys can see, but a little bit of context is to what Greg is saying. The dispatch log, is literally the log that details where officers are being dispatched to, which officers are being dispatched, and the order in which they arrive. So this is the official log of that morning. It is who was there, what time they were there, all of that.
I forgot about the time.
I'm going to play the clip.
Right. There appear to be 3 entries for the dispatch of the officers that were on the scene about which you testified yesterday, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in fact, it has this dispatch log shows that you and then Officer Mullaney and then Sergeant Good all arrived to 32 Fairview that morning within 7 seconds of each other, correct?
I'm going to keep playing, but I just want to add a little bit of context. Again, this is Steve Saraf who is testifying. He is the first responding officer to the scene. And so this is the actual log on screen if you're watching versus hearing. We have the actual log on screen. And so what he is saying is that this log is saying Steve Saraf actually was not first who got there. He was later. And so they just called attention to, that's wrong. Okay, here we go. Keep going.
That's what it says, yes.
It actually has Officer Mullaney arriving first at 6:09:26. You see that? So has 3 seconds later at 6:09:29 you arriving. 4 seconds after you at 6:09 and 33 seconds, correct?
Sure. Yep, correct.
That is completely false, isn't it?
Yes.
And clearly, we saw it yesterday. You arrive, and there's nobody else on scene.
Correct. Yep.
All right. So right off the bat, the official Canton Police Department dispatch log, one of the first documents generated in any investigative event, that's completely wrong, right?
The times are, yes.
Well, the times and the orders, right? At the left-hand column where it's highlighted in green, what's that address?
It says 32 Fairview.
Did you arrive to 32 Fairview Road?
No.
You arrived to 34 Fairview Road,
That's correct. Yep.
So that even the location on the dispatch log is faulty, is that right?
Sure, yep.
You testified at a grand jury in April of 2022, correct?
I did.
At that grand jury, do you remember telling the grand jurors what address you actually responded to? Arrived.
It says 35 Fairview.
Are you aware that have you ever discussed with Sergeant Good that he wrote in his official report that you responded to 32 Fairview Road?
No.
And of course, we just talked about the fact that the dispatch log lists 32 Fairview Road and not 34 Fairview Road, correct?
Correct.
So none of the initial police reports, not the dispatch log, not your police report, apparently not Sergeant Good's, list 34 Fairview Road as the actual location. Was there an effort on your part or anybody else's, to your knowledge, to mask the actual address of Brian Albert's house as 34 Fairview Road?
No.
No.
Mm-hmm.
No, man. We didn't do that.
And again, if you go back to this, you heard the opening statement. If he comes out swinging saying she was framed, and then one of the first witnesses is this officer, and their cross-examination is showing that all of the documents are wrong from the very beginning. If I was a juror, I'd be over there like, child.
So let's
Child.
think about this, though.
Guilty already.
Already. I'm with you on that one. Think about this, though.
Yep.
No one went into that home, did any type of investigation, right?
Correct.
What if an officer says, I did go to 35 such Fair Street? That's what's in the log, and that's what I went off of. So that's why I didn't investigate this home. And then they're like, well, we sent the officer and they just went to the wrong address.
Wrong address.
Because all y'all logged in the wrong address.
Because everybody's a liar. Go
I
ahead.
forgot about the 32. I mean, the 35.
Yep.
So it's two different addresses.
And the fact that it was from the outset incorrect is just questionable. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So this next clip is, again, this is cross-examination. And Karen's attorney is talking to that same officer about when he arrived, the three people who were there. Karen is there, and she is trying to administer CPR to John O'Keefe, who was laying in the snow and freezing, right? And she has blood all over herself because she has been messing with him. There's also Jennifer McCabe, who is the sister-in-law of the owner of the house they're in front of, okay? And then there is the other woman whose name I'm forgetting right now, but she's a friend of the O'Keefe family. She later takes the parents to the hospital and all of that. So it's those three women who are there. And so this is Karen's attorney still talking to the officer, Steve, and here we go.
Isn't it true that Jennifer McCabe pulled you aside while my client and Carrie Roberts stayed with John O'Keefe and began engaging you in a conversation?
Yes.
And she was providing some sort of a narrative to you, correct?
Correct.
While the other two women are trying to save John O'Keefe's life, she's talking to you.
For brief seconds, I would say.
For brief seconds?
Yes.
You saw the dash cam video. Was those several minutes on the dash cam video where she's standing and having a conversation with you? Are those the brief seconds?
I don't know what time frame you're talking about. So.
Did Jennifer McCabe offer to you during that brief seconds that you described, this narrative that she was having, this conversation she was having with you, did she ever offer the fact that she was standing in front of her sister's house?
No.
Did she ever offer the fact that her brother-in-law, who lives in the house, is a first responder?
Objection.
Sustained.
Were you apprised at any time while you were out there that the homeowner was a first responder?
Objection.
Sustained.
First of all, let me just say, Those are probably the only objections the whole day. Okay, in comparison to YSL, it was like 2. Anyway, what he just said that was a big deal, okay, is that the party that Karen dropped John O'Keefe off of that night, obviously the owner is a police officer. And so he's found in the morning, everybody comes, the officers are coming. And so what he just highlighted is that Jennifer McCabe, who is in front of her sister and brother-in-law's house, who is an officer, never tells the responding officers, hey, this is my in-law's house. Hey, he's an officer. Hey, he should be administering first. Like, never mentions that to police. But, and I don't have the clip for it, I'm going to have to make it in my I'm Not a Lawyer But video. The attorney also shows video of Jennifer McCabe walking away from the scene of where John is and going to the house while everything is still happening and unfolding. She literally leaves the scene and goes in. Meanwhile, the owners never come outside. Ever.
Which is wild, y'all. If you're a police officer, man, if you're a human being and the ambulance, fire trucks, police officers, people are out on your front lawn, you have a dog, so your dog is making you aware of this. You're sticking your head out. As a civilian, you're sticking your head out.
6 a.m.?
You're coming outside.
Lights, camera, action,
but
ambulance?
As an officer?
You're not getting out? As
a house of officers?
And you never come outside?
You definitely coming out to see what's happening.
I typically
Unless you already know what happened.
Amen. Mm-hmm. I typically really do try to reserve my judgments until the end. Child, this is tough. This is tough. Let me play the next part of it.
Between Karen Reed and Jennifer McCabe, which one of those 2 women, based on your observations, appeared to you to be more focused on physically trying to save John O'Keefe's life in the moment?
At that point, it was Karen Reed.
You would agree with me, Officer Seraph, that in any investigation, details matter, accuracy matters, correct?
Sure.
Reports are written in police investigations in order to memorialize observations, things heard, seen, experienced by the officers, correct?
Yes.
And generally speaking, you're trained to write those reports and memorialize those observations as quickly as possible so that things are fresh in your memory.
Correct.
You don't want to write a report about an incident that you respond to today, 2 years from now.
No.
As a matter of fact, you're trained exactly the opposite. When you respond to a scene, it's somewhat important, you need to get it down on paper as quickly as possible for detail and accuracy, right?
Yes.
I inserted that clip to be shady to YSL because the other, y'all know the officer, I don't know, no report. And even in this case, he is saying, how important are reports? Very important. When do you write them? The very same day, the very next day, as soon as you can, because they are important, because details matters and you will forget and you can't rely on your memory because you won't remember. So shout out to YSL and Detective Gaither. All right, keep going.
Quote, hear Karen Reed continually state, is he dead, as the paramedics treated the victim. Officer Seraph then seen Karen inside her friend's vehicle, correct?
Correct.
So the only statement you attributed to my client the day after this incident was those 3 words, is he dead, that she continually repeated. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you. In the 2 times that you were asked to reflect back on exactly what happened that morning, on January 29th and January 30th, both times you attributed only 3 words to my client having been repeated continually in her distraught state. Is he dead? Right?
Yes.
Then you were asked to testify in April of 2022, April 14th of 2022, at a state-run grand jury. When you did testify in that grand jury, in fact, on April 14th, 2022, months after this event, for the first time, you said, quote, and these are your words, tell me if I get them right. She, this is my fault. I don't know. She said, I can't believe this happened. I mean, she kept asking if he was going to die. if he's dead. And, I just basically said, we're doing the best that we could, end quote. So in April of 2022, for the first time, you attributed the phrase, "This is my fault. I can't believe this happened," to my client, correct?
That's correct.
What just happened, okay, is that on direct examination, that officer that officer just testified that when he got there, she said, "It's my fault. Is he dead? It's my fault." What he testified during direct examination is that when he was there, Karen Reed said, "It's my fault. Is he dead? It's my fault." And so on cross-examination, Karen Reed's attorney has just highlighted to him, when you first wrote your report and when you were interviewed shortly after, all you said was that Karen Reed said, "Is he dead?" Those are the only 3 words you attributed to Karen Reed that day. And then months after, in April, later on, when you go in front of a grand jury and they're trying to bring this indictment against Karen Reed, all of a sudden now you are saying, she also said, "It's my fault." And so the attorney is saying, you changed your story. And that's why he was bringing up reports, because he was like, reports are important because when you write them immediately after, everything's fresh and it's usually pretty accurate, versus when months pass and you can talk to other people and your story starts to change, all of a sudden you're giving her more words. Go ahead.
That's good enough for me.
Well, I think you were going to... Oh, go ahead.
I mean, dude already has 2 strikes. He had the wrong address. He's not documenting anything correctly, and he's switching up his testimony.
Yeah.
That's something you don't forget somebody says.
If they said, "It's my fault," and you're an officer, you would think that would cause action. Yeah. You would be like, "It's your fault." Well, how is it all your fault? We might want to bring some charges against you. Mm-hmm. But if all she said was, "Is he dead?" that doesn't inspire action. It just inspires sadness. Oh, I feel so bad for her. Those are very different instances. And so that really is what her attorney is highlighting, is you didn't change your story, sir. And we don't believe you.
Believe me.
And so what is... Okay,
Big Steve.
Somebody said Big Steve, not the little one. The next thing the next clip is going to be, which is funny, kind of. Understand my context when I say funny. But the Commonwealth, the prosecutor, keeps saying when he is doing direct examination, did anybody else come out? Basically, the owners of the house didn't come out, but did anybody else on the street come out? All this commotion, all this stuff is happening, and the owners aren't the only people who didn't come outside. And so the clip I'm about to play is the Commonwealth, the prosecutor has just said to, actually, this is the second witness. This is the second police officer. And he has just said, just so we're clear, nobody else on the street came outside, right? And so the witness says, no, nobody else. And then this is what Karen Reed's attorney does.
I have nothing further.
One question, if I might.
Okay.
Recross.
Sure.
And I don't mean to be a wise guy, sir, but did any of the other neighbors on the entire street have the body of a dead police officer on their front lawn?
Objection. No.
All right, so that's sustained. All right. You are all set, sir.
The judge was like, all right, man.
Stop playing with me, boy. Yeah.
He tapped to his inner goose on that one. I would have been like, yeah, did anybody else have a body in their front yard?
Was anybody else a police officer with another police officer dead in their front yard? Was that the case for anybody else on the street? Because of course they didn't come out. They probably looked out the window though. But if imagine somebody being in your front yard, the police and an ambulance being in your front yard and you not coming outside.
True
Greg
story.
come outside if a person passes with a dog. Greg be like, hey, how you doing? I'd be like, sir.
I don't be saying, hey. I'd be like, hey, don't put that dog shit in my trash can.
You say, hey.
They be walking by the house putting dog shit in the trash can. Anyway, true story. I'm in the shower. There was a car wreck next door.
Oh,
and
my.
I heard it.
Oh, my. Yes.
I jump out the shower. I'm thinking somebody trying to break in the house. I walk outside in my towel. There's a car wreck next door. Yes. And I'm like, oh, it's a car,
Yes.
And then the police come.
Yep.
I walk out there and I'm like,
yes.
Okay, all right, I see what's happening.
I'm over here like, hide. We got to watch, but
Male
hide.
behind the wall as if
I'm like,
they drawing down on
Greg
us.
will come outside and make sure you see him. I don't want you to see me. I want to see you. I don't want you to see me. Greg is like, hey, I'm here and I want you to see that I saw you. I'm like, they going to come after you. If they saw your face, they going to know who you are.
If I was the neighbor, they all be in jail already.
Anyway, the point is the fact that they want anybody to believe that this happened in the front yard of a police officer and he didn't come outside.
Nobody came out. They was having a party. Nobody came outside.
And the person who is outside with the accident is the sister of the owner of the house. And she didn't say, hey, y'all come outside. Instead, she sneaks into the house, unbeknownst to all the other officers there. Boy, get out my face. If I was a juror, I'd get out of my face. I'm telling y'all, I usually be trying to reserve my judgment. This is silly. This is ridiculous. They have done a terrible cover-up job.
It's going to get crazy as these witnesses come on in. Come on in.
All right, we got to get to the last one.
Okay.
Which is a paramedic, a firefighter. Mm-hmm. He was also called to the scene. And his delivery, the thing that I enjoy about witnesses is that as the juror, you get to determine if they're credible or not, right? And so this witness, the way that he spoke and really his knowledge, he comes across as very credible. Mm-hmm. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, he knows his stuff. He knows what he's talking about. Very definitive, very clear, like not questionable at all. And then the defense got up. And he talks about when he arrived, the clothing that John O'Keefe had on, okay? And he talks about this jacket, this winter coat that John O'Keefe had on. I'm going to play the clip. Just know the jacket.
Multiple people were performing CPR, and eventually a mechanical CPR device was applied. Those compressions were uninterrupted, and others were removing clothing, I honestly couldn't tell you the number of articles of clothing, but I believe a winter jacket and a sweatshirt were removed, and then eventually he was all the clothing was removed, and that's protocol for any cardiac arrest or any traumatic injury is usually all clothing is removed so we can have unfettered access to the individual to see if there are any other injuries.
But you remember him having a big jacket on?
Correct.
Okay. And you remember that as well as you remember the other specifics of the incident?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to say that her attorney is also very shady because he has on multiple occasions been like, okay, and what you just said, you are 100%, and they'll say yes. And he'll be like, and you remember that 100% as much as everything else you're going to say today about this case. And they'd be like, yeah. And then he'd catch him in a lie and he'd be like, so you remember, huh? You remember? You good? You got good memory, don't you? No, you don't. So anyway, that part happens. We're going to circle back to that jacket. Just hold. The other thing to note is that John's body, right? The claim is that she backed her car into him, hit him, and he obviously fell and was left in the cold and died. His brother, as well as this paramedic, testify to his eyes being massive, black eyes bulging out of his face. He had a knot on his head, scratches on his right arm, I believe. Okay. And all of that is supposed to be consistent with being hit by a car that was reversing and leaving, supposedly. So that's what he's about to talk about is the injuries to John O'Keefe's body.
In addition to the egg on the right side of his head, in the front, did it also have a black eye on the left side?
If memory serves correct, yes.
So both eyes were blackened?
Primarily the right side, if memory serves.
Okay. And the laceration toward the right side?
Yes.
Over the right eye. You claim to have heard this statement, I hit him,
yes,
several times from the woman with the blood on her face.
Correct.
You indicated that she was erratic?
Correct.
Hysterical?
Correct.
And it's absolutely clear in your mind that when that statement was made, you were knelt down over Mr. O'Keefe. Flamati was doing CPR. Kelly was with you guys, and you posed the question to her, do you know him? Correct?
Correct.
Great. So I want to make sure I understand this. You said, as you're knelt down, do you know him? directly to the female, and she answered your question with, I hit him, I hit him.
Yes.
But that's not what you told Trooper Proctor in a February 8th interview.
Okay. I don't recall what I told Trooper Proctor.
Do you recall on February 8th telling Trooper Proctor that while you were rendering aid, you heard Karen say, I hit him, to another female on the scene, and the other female told Karen to be quiet?
I do recall that.
That's not what you testified to today, though.
Okay.
That story has changed to you posed a question, and she answered your question. Correct?
Correct.
So which is it?
So
you didn't write a report, just to finish my question, you didn't write a report that said, by the way, while I was out at the scene, I heard a female say, I hit him, and that's the cause and manner of the injuries.
Not to my knowledge.
Well, you would know if you wrote a report that said that.
Correct.
And you did not.
I did not write the patient care report.
You didn't overhear the person say it to a female. Now, she's talking directly to you now.
She spoke directly to me, yes. The memories that I have.
Y'all.
Oh, wait, I got to put us on the screen.
Listen to this man. He said that they were basically face to face.
Yeah.
Him and Karen. And she said, I hit him to his face. He said that she said that to him.
Mm-hmm.
Then his report says that he heard it off at a distance, and he heard her friend tell him to be quiet. The guy says, which one is it? He then says, just now, she told me to my face. Do you remember that? Nah.
Wait,
what?
When I went over my lie earlier, they didn't tell me how to answer this question.
This guy,
hold. Can I phone a friend?
Y'all, I'm gonna be straight up with you. It almost sounds like this guy was planted in this scenario. He came in early.
Yes. That day, he reported that he had gone to work early, and as soon as he got there, he got this call, and then he went out to the scene.
Yes. And everything he's talking about, and when we circle back to that jacket, it's almost like he wasn't there, and he's missing parts of the story that they're like, hey, make sure you mention this. Make sure you mention that. He's the only one talking about, hey, she said she did it. It was her fault. I heard this repeatedly, even though the other police officer didn't hear it at all either until his second report.
Everybody, it's not from the beginning. It's all after they talk to Proctor or when they go to the grand jury. That is what happens. And so this is the circle back to the jacket. Okay, so all of that just happened where he's calling him out on his lies, and this is how they end up.
And the ones that I'm bringing up, I don't believe that they've changed. I've played them over in my head to the best of my ability, and I don't believe my story is swayed. If they've been enunciated incorrectly on my part, that it wasn't intentional.
Understood. And nobody's casting aspersions. Memory's a funny thing. So your memory is as good about that as it is about that winter coat.
Yes, sir.
Bruh, I couldn't be a juror in this case. I talk about being a juror in YSL all the time. This one, I would be like, oh, hello. Oh, what? I would be in there screaming. They would be like, ma'am, you have got to go. You remove her. Where are the alternate jurors? Because she can't be it. This is a mess.
But it's a good mess. You can follow it.
Well, I hope. I mean, we have to see how it all unfolds. But Karen Reed is accused of murder. Like, this is her life at stake. And these people could potentially, the way it seems, be framing her. And that is not a joke. That is insane.
Anybody with an eye to see and an ear to hear.
We'll see.
We'll recognize this is that bullshit.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
One more thing, because somebody just brought up impeachment, which absolutely the whole defense, every witness is being impeached outside of the brother and the sister-in-law who were the first witnesses. And impeaching is just showing the jury that somebody is not credible. That's all. It's making them out to be a liar and making the jury essentially question if they're credible or not. And everybody that has been on that stand outside of the first two, I'm not a lawyer or a juror in this trial. I would be questioning though. It is ridiculous. So anyway, you know what typically happens after the presentation of the state's case or the Commonwealth in this case, the presentation of the prosecution's case, they lay it out at the end before the defense gets to present their case. Typically what happens is the defense, it's just normal, will ask for the case to be dismissed. They'll just be like, based off of what they presented, it should be dismissed. Most times it's not credible. It's like people just ask, but it's going to be denied. When they ask this one, I'm curious. That judge, she would be well within her right. Even after 2 days, she would be well within her right to be like, yeah, dismiss this. Everybody go home. This is ridiculous. Anyway, we are well beyond time. We have a child we have to pick up from school.
You don't want to tell that baby can wait. You don't want to tell them about the
I'm not leaving my child outside.
It's warm. It's hot out there.
Thank you for joining us.
There was no crime tape.
We will be back next week. I hope y'all are watching.
Proctor, Mel, we got to let them know.
We have to go get my baby.
Okay. Look, y'all.
This is what happens when a podcast is hosted by a husband and wife. Greg, I'm going to get my child.
So we have to remember to mention the tail lights.
They're going to get into all that. It's more to come.
But what I'm saying, it happened this week, though. About the tail light, and they didn't find anything until Proctor took that lady car.
I know. Okay. I left it out because it's coming. It's gonna get bigger than it was this week. It was like smaller.
I guess we go get it.
All right, we have to go get my kid. You can watch. We're gonna be following this trial. Obviously, like I said, for the next few weeks, we're gonna be talking about it, bringing you clips, all of that stuff. So watch online. It streams every day. You can stream it on a bunch of stuff. You can literally put Karen Reed trial, and there are multiple outlets that will bring it up for you. So you can either watch or just wait for our recaps and our commentary. Obviously, I'm still doing YSL. You can follow me on I'm Not a Lawyer, but on all the things, all the places. Where can they find you?
You can catch me on IG. That's GOOLZBY.
Thanks, y'all.